Oh hey, guess what guys? Summertime is quickly approaching, which means that people all across the planet have begun the search for that elusive summer bod. Now, kids, I've learned with my body over the years that you just have to take what you can get. But I do try to eat healthy as often as I can. Now, the problem that I have with most healthy food is that so often it leaves me feeling not very satisfied as soon as I'm done. I'm always hungry a half an hour later. Well, that is not the case with the recipe I'm sharing with you today. My Mediterranean-inspired quinoa salad is delicious, good for you, and won't leave you wanting more. I feel like that's probably a bad thing to say about food. But you get what I mean. You're not gonna be hungry right after you eat it. It's going to leave you full and satisfied, even though you've eaten something healthy. And I'm gonna show you all how to do it today on The Blue Wizard Cooks. All right, it's time for the most important part of any recipe, and that is getting everything together in its place so we have everything we need, where we need it, and when we need it. Let's make some magic. Okay, so we're gonna start with our quinoa, the star of the show today. You know quinoa, that stuff that nobody can pronounce because it's spelled like this. Because it's spelled like this. Thank you. Words today. Well, anyway, we're starting with the quinoa, and it's sort of like a little grain that we're going to have as the star of our show. It's a nice complex carbohydrate. It's going to keep you energized. It's going to keep you going all day long. And it's got a lot of fiber in it, which is also going to keep you, well, going. Well, anyway, so normally, the right way to cook quinoa is you're supposed to rinse it first because there's extra starch and stuff, but I'm an impatient person, so yeah, we're not gonna do that. So inside of this pot, I had 3 cups of water, and to that I added 1.5 cups of quinoa. And I used the tri-colored quinoa, but you can use any variety of quinoa that you find. Now I'm gonna go and take it off to the stove. We're gonna turn our stove to a high heat and place our quinoa and water over the top. When the mixture comes to a boil, we are going to cover the pot, turn the heat down to a low, and let it simmer for 15 to 20 minutes until all of the water is absorbed. All right, so now that our quinoa is done and nicely cooked, I want it to cool pretty quick because, again, impatient. I don't want it to sit and take forever. So what I'm gonna do is spread it out onto this sheet pan instead of letting it just sit in the pot to cool naturally. Now just spread it thin over the top, and this way when I put it into the refrigerator, because that's where we're heading next, it'll just take and cool a lot faster because it has more surface area. There you go, a little science lesson for you today. Perfect, so now I'm just gonna take and throw this into the fridge. Now, y'all know that I typically like to have everything chopped and ready to go before I even start making a recipe. But since we had to wait for the quinoa anyway, I figure I'll do my chopping now. I'm gonna start with my pint of grape tomatoes. I'm just gonna halve those. I'm going to quarter and dice 1 medium English cucumber. I'm going to dice 1/2 of a large red onion. So now that our chopping is done, it's time that we can get started on our dressing. Now I call it a dressing, but there's no oil in it, so I don't know if it technically can be considered a dressing, but it is what we are going to dress our salad in, so that's what I'm gonna call it. We're gonna start off with 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. Then we're gonna add in the zest of 2 lemons. If you haven't been cooking and baking with lemon zest, kids, you are really missing out. It just smells so fresh. Now we're gonna add in the juice of both of those lemons. Got my juicer. And I'm gonna add in 3 cloves of garlic. Now I'm going to be using my zester in order to sort of mince in the garlic, but you can always hand mince it and throw it in that way too. I like doing it this way simply because it gets, I think, more flavor. All right, and the last thing I'm gonna add is our chopped onions. Okay, and the reason why I like to add them now is because I find that onions can have obviously a little bit of an acrid taste to them, and adding them to the vinegar now is going to help and sort of cut that a little bit. Perfect. All right, and we're just gonna let that sit for a few minutes while we wait for our quinoa to get cool to the touch. All right, our quinoa is now cool enough. It is not hot anymore, and it's just a little bit warm, which is okay because that's gonna help it to absorb some more of that dressing. So I'm just gonna add that in to the bowl with our dressing. Careful not to lose any. It has a nice nutty smell to it. It smells healthy, but it tastes really good. All right, and now we're gonna add in our other ingredients, our 1 pint of grape tomatoes and our 1 medium English cucumber chopped up. And one of my favorite ingredients, feta cheese. We're gonna add 7 ounces of feta to this recipe. Now I'm gonna be using reduced fat feta here because, you know, why not be extra healthy? But if you're like, hold the phone, it's a little too healthy for me, that's okay. You could always just use the regular stuff. Now in terms of flavors, we're going to be adding in 2 teaspoons of dried oregano and 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper. And of course a little sprinkle of salt. Not a lot though, because our feta is already salty. And now we're just gonna give that a stir. As you can see, this makes a lot of salad. Fantastic. Now, you could of course eat this now. If you want it to be even better, you're gonna let it chill in the fridge for at least an hour before you serve it to anybody. And it will keep in the fridge for at least a week. But I think as we've established a couple of times in this episode already, I'm an impatient person. Again, impatient. I'm impatient. So I'm gonna try a little bit now. Looks tasty. All right, let's try a bite. Phenomenal. That quinoa is perfectly cooked. You get freshness from the vegetables, the cucumber and the tomato. You get that little tangy zip from the vinegar and the lemon. You get that depth of flavor from the lemon zest. You get the saltiness of the feta cheese. Kids, this salad is out of this world. And you know what? It is definitely going to leave me feeling full, even though it is a very healthy meal. Well, kids, if you like this recipe and you want to see me make others like it, you're definitely going to want to go down and slap that like button down below. You're also going to want to hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell for notifications, so this way you're notified every time that I post a new video. If you want to follow what I'm doing elsewhere on the internet, you're going to want to follow me at both Instagram and Twitter at JoeTheBlueWiz. And of course, for this recipe and all of my other recipes, make sure you head straight to my website, bluewizardfood.com, or get the link in the description below this video. And remember, kids, you don't have to be a professional chef in order to make magic in your kitchen. Bye now.